back to This is Baseball. I am Brandon Johnson. Thank you to everyone that is tuning in. Before we get into the show, I have a couple of announcements, housekeeping items regarding the show. So, number one, we are officially back to weekly episodes every Wednesday, and that is official today. Today is the first week of going back to weekly episodes, and I'm excited to get back into it with the regular season only a week away. Took the off season, did every other episodes, took a little bit of a break, and excited to hit the ground running again for the second year of this podcast. So, again, weekly episodes starting today. Let's get into it. So, it's been a while. Last week or the week before, the Athletics shared the renderings of their proposed stadium in Las Vegas. They proposed a fixed roof stadium, so they proposed a dome to sit in Las Vegas. And honestly, as far as stadiums go, stadium renderings go, it's not bad. It's not my favorite one I've ever seen. I think it's got some interesting features in it, but it's a baseball stadium. I think one of the most interesting things about it is actually the capacity. And it's going to seat only about 33,000 people, which is about 13,000 less than Oakland Coliseum can handle now. Obviously, Oakland Coliseum also was a place that hosted football games at one point in its time, so has a little bit more space, but going to be significantly less. And that's something that, as far as the capacity is concerned, seems to be a trend in baseball. Like looking at the Royals' proposed stadium in their downtown spot, Kauffman Stadium, I believe, if you include standing room, can handle 40,000 fans. And the new proposed stadium for Kansas City is going to be about 34 to 35,000, I believe. So kind of downsizing seating a little bit in Major League Baseball, which makes perfect sense. Have less seats means less empty seats, I guess. But again, significantly smaller from a capacity standpoint. But something that's honestly more interesting about the Athletics stadium proposal in Las Vegas is the situation that they're in now before they would even potentially move to Las Vegas. So the A's, at the earliest, plan to open their stadium by 2028. Obviously, it's 2024, so about 4 years before that projected opening date for the Las Vegas ballpark. The Athletics are currently at the end of their lease. They're in their final year of their lease at Oakland Coliseum right now. So 2024 is the last, most likely the last season in Oakland Coliseum for the A's. They don't have an alternate site set up yet to play in while the Vegas stadium is being built. I think the easiest scenario would be to ask for an extension at Oakland Coliseum, but if I'm Oakland, I have no intention of helping out a team that clearly doesn't want to be here anyway. So it's more likely that they go and play for 3 years in another city. They've looked at places like Sacramento. They've looked in Salt Lake City. They've even looked at sharing the Giants' Oracle Park with them. And that seems logistically impossible for two Major League Baseball teams to share a stadium, but I also don't think that the Giants would even remotely be interested in that. But the NHL teams and NBA teams share arenas, so maybe there's a path to it, but I think that would be a complete nightmare and honestly something that neither team is probably interested in. The one that I've seen the most is Sacramento. There's a minor league ballpark there that the A's could play in, but I would imagine that that kind of creates some of the same issues that sharing a park with the Giants would. So I don't really know what the A's are going to do. Obviously, we'll know something very soon because the A's don't have a lot of time. Like I said, this is their last year of their lease where they're currently at. So clock is ticking. The spot in Las Vegas currently has a hotel casino sitting on it that needs to be demolished, and that is going to be demolished, I believe, on April 2nd. I don't know how long a demolition typically takes, but if the A's want to play in Vegas by opening day of 2028, I would imagine that they need to break ground late 2024, early 2025. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, which honestly isn't surprising because nothing about this situation with the A's has been smooth. If you've been following along at all, there's been pretty much deliberate tanking by A's owner John Fisher. Whatever your opinion of him you have is yours to have. I don't have much to say about him. All I know is he has not made a ton of friends along the way in this. He has pretty much given A's fans no reason to show up to the ballpark outside of a protest that they exhibited last June where they sold out the park in kind of an anti-boycott of the team. Now, I don't think that this situation ends with John Fisher selling the A's. I think that is most likely off the table. So if that's what you want this outcome to be, I don't see it happening. I don't think he would have gone through all of this to just turn around and sell the team. But again, a completely weird and awkward situation happening with the Athletics, the city of Oakland, Las Vegas, and other teams that are cities that have kind of been dragged into the mix with this thing. So hopefully here, I would assume by June, we will know what the A's are going to be doing for the next 3 years. If that's extending the lease in Oakland, or if that is playing somewhere else until their ballpark is built. Let's move off of that for now. We'll come back to it when we have a little bit more information as to what is going on with the A's and that entire saga. And let's move on to the 2024 regular season, because for most teams, this season's going to kick off on March 28th, next Thursday. But for two teams, the season is kicking off this week in a 2-game series between the new look Los Angeles Dodgers with Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Glasnow, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They still have Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, who is now their everyday shortstop. So this is a team that, again, new look, had a huge offseason, is going to get to give everybody a first impression earlier than most. And they're going to match up in these 2 games against the San Diego Padres, a team that kind of offloaded some payroll during the offseason, did a little bit of, opposite work that the Dodgers did. Moved off of Juan Soto, didn't sign Blake Snell, who we'll get into here in a second. But they did recently just make a splash in the trade market last week, the San Diego Padres traded for White Sox starting pitcher Dylan Cease, and a move that really surprised everybody. And it makes sense for the Padres to do this because they could have signed Blake Snell, but Blake Snell would have been significantly more expensive than getting somebody like Dylan Cease. And you're going to add him to a rotation that's honestly pretty solid. He's going to plug in nicely with Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish. And you still have players like Xander Bogaerts and Manny Machado on their team. So while I don't feel like the Padres are going to win the National League West or anything, I think they can still be somewhat of a fun team to watch. And a name that I completely failed to mention was Fernando Tatis Jr. And the series taking place in Seoul, South Korea. This is the first time that Major League Baseball has played in Korea. So this is going to be a fun celebration for South Korea and Major League Baseball together. Obviously, like I said, the rest of the league will open their seasons next Thursday on the 28th, which we'll get into next week. But I want to go back to the Dylan Cease trade because it seemed like the Yankees were in talks, in line to acquire Dylan Cease via trade from the White Sox, even before we learned that their ace and unanimous Cy Young winner from last season is going to be sidelined for 1 to 2 months with some elbow discomfort. He underwent testing last week in Florida. He met with a doctor, and right now there's no tear in any ligaments, and it sounds like he doesn't need surgery. But again, the Yankees are going to be without Garrett Cole for, again, at least till May, probably June, based off of everything we've seen. And you also want to hope that this doesn't get worse, because everybody's fear when you start talking about a pitcher having elbow discomfort is that they're going to end up needing Tommy John surgery. So hopefully this doesn't escalate to that, because we don't want Garrett Cole missing time. I'm always for having the best players in the league obviously being healthy and on the field, and Garrett Cole missing time would mean that he'd likely miss all of this season if he had to have that Tommy John surgery, and maybe even some of next season. So hopefully, like I said, he comes back and everything's good. For the Yankees, that means that they're going to have to find a way to be successful without him. They brought in Marcus Stroman during the offseason, but I like Marcus Stroman. I don't think that he's going to be able to step in and do what Garrett Cole did, but here's something that could happen. Blake Snell, as I stated earlier, is still out on the free agent market. He's somebody that you could potentially, if you're the Yankees, maybe it's time to go out and get Blake Snell and put him on your rotation, because as I stated, Garrett Cole is the unanimous AL Cy Young Award winner. Blake Snell won the Cy Young Award on the National League side. So you'd be replacing, or I don't think replacing is the right word, but Blake Snell could fill in for Garrett Cole during that time. And then let's say Garrett Cole comes back healthy and you feel really good about having the two reigning Cy Young Award winners on your pitching rotation if you are the New York Yankees. Blake Snell is an interesting case of somebody of his caliber being unsigned. Now, when I tell you who his agent is, maybe you won't be surprised, but he is represented by Scott Boras. So I think Scott Boras is doing everything he can to get Blake Snell and himself the most money possible. That's really what Scott Boras has always been about. I think he is terrible for the game, personally, because it's really all about the money with him, and this isn't the first time that he has had players that have missed out on most of, if not all of, spring training in order to get a deal. Now, I would hope that somebody like Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery have been working throughout the offseason and even into spring training to make sure that they could be ready to go to play a Major League Baseball season and give 30 starts to whatever major league team signs them. And I don't know if Blake Snell, if the holdup is people don't think that he can give them the innings that they want. He's only pitched 180 innings twice in his entire career. Both of those times he won Cy Youngs. He won, obviously, Cy Young Award with the Padres last season, pitching 180 innings. And he won a Cy Young with the Tampa Bay Rays, pitching 180 innings. Every season between those two seasons, he's pitched significantly less than that. So maybe it's an issue of teams not seeing that he can be durable, or his price tag is too high. I think hopefully this time next week we're talking about Blake Snell signing with some team in Major League Baseball. Because in the same way that I would hate to see Garrett Cole, who is the top 3 pitcher in the league, missing significant time, I would hate to see a great pitcher in Blake Snell also not being on a roster and pitching during this season due to contract negotiations. So spring training is wrapping up here at the end of the week, and there's been a little bit of talks of, is spring training too long? Is the preseason for Major League Baseball too long of a time frame? If you think about it, pitchers and catchers report typically around Valentine's Day, that second week of February, usually the week after the Super Bowl, and everybody's there until the second to last week of March. The final games of spring training are on the 23rd of this month, coming up on Saturday. I look at other preseasons, looking at NFL. They do a 2-week training camp in July and August, and then play 3 preseason games before the season opens up. NBA does 5-ish preseason games before they open up for the regular season, so significantly less time for NBA and NFL. And you look at NFL, a lot of players, like, they play maybe 1 or 2 series during each game if they're solidified in their positions. NBA, it's really just to get warmed up, which obviously that's what preseason is. But MLB is, again, second week of February, and then they start playing games on kind of like the 20th of February, maybe 22nd of February. And they're playing baseball games essentially every day for a month. And then they have to turn around. And they're not doing this at home. Everybody's going to either Arizona or Florida, spending 6 weeks there, and then getting about a week off, a little less, and then playing 162 games if you're lucky enough to play in every game. So Major League Baseball is already a long season, which I love, but maybe it is worth looking at, is spring training too long? Because I feel like you should know who's got it and who doesn't, and who's going to be on your 26-man roster and who's going to get released or sent down to the minors. Maybe this is something that comes up in the CBA coming up in a few years. That's going to be a very interesting negotiation between the league and the players. Before we get out of here, a little bit of Royals news, and maybe this isn't going to be surprising to anybody, but they just named Cole Ragans their opening day starter. Cole Ragans is somebody that the Royals traded for with the Texas Rangers around June last season. They sent Aroldis Chapman to the Rangers and got Cole Ragans in return, and he has been spectacular for the Royals. So this is a celebration for not only the Royals, but for Cole Ragans to get the recognition that he deserves based off of his production from last season and how he's pitched in spring training. And Cole Ragans can be a legitimate ace in this league. And I think he's going to do well and continue to be great for the Royals, and possibly with a full season as a starter under his belt, contingent on his health and obviously production. He could be somebody that is a Cy Young candidate looking down the line. And I think this is fun if you're a Royals fan, because the Royals could have easily just trotted out Michael Wacha or Seth Lugo and said, you're going to be the opening day starter. But I think, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think this is the Royals saying, like, we mean business. We're going to open this season with Cole Ragans because we feel like he's going to give us the best opportunity to win in a weaker American League Central. Because I think that the Royals intend on being competitive in the American League Central this year, just based off of everything that they did this offseason. That would make a lot of sense. So putting out your best starter on day one is a good move. Now, obviously, everybody, all their starters are going to make 30 starts, and at the end of the day, it's just like a fun honor for your ace of the rotation. But it's good for the Royals. That is all I have this week. Next week, we will celebrate 1 year of This Is Baseball, celebrate opening day, and lots more. Thank you so much for listening today. I will see you next week.